Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist. Let's jump right into ACC sports news. 10 ACC cross-country teams qualified for the NCAA championships. Notre Dame men and women, Syracuse men and women, Florida State men and women, Wake Forest and UNC men, NC State and UNC women, and NC State's J.P. Flavin earned a spot as an individual competitor. NCAA field hockey quarterfinals, Syracuse is the sole ACC team left. The Orange beat Maryland. ACC women's soccer, 9 teams qualifying for the NCAA championship. Clemson, UVA, Duke, FSU, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Wake Forest,
you got it,
and NC State. Yeah. The ACC men's soccer championship has Notre Dame facing off with Duke. NCAA volleyball power 10, number 1, Louisville, number 3, Pitt. In bracket predictions, Louisville is one of the top picks, obviously, number 1 seed. Pitt is number 4, which means they also get a number 1 seed. Georgia Tech is a number 7 seed. Also, Miami, Florida State, and North Carolina have been invited. And the latest USCHO ice hockey rankings, men, 15, Notre Dame, number 16, Boston College. And for the women, it's Boston College at number 7. Well, we've got less than a week under our belts, Will, when it comes to ACC men's and women's basketball. Any observations or thoughts on what you've seen in its limited form so far?
Well, let me start on the women's side because they've had some two real big highlight games this week, starting on opening night with South Carolina playing Louisville. That was NC State, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, NC State, excuse me. I have the right team, the other team I was going to talk about in a minute, but NC State, South Carolina State, a good competitive ball game. I know South Carolina ended up winning by 9, but that was a game that was pretty competitive throughout. Impressive effort from the Wolfpack in that game. Thought they battled hard for the duration of the game and were right in it until the very end. And then Saturday, Louisville took on Arizona in a game that went to overtime, and they fell just a little bit short. But again, the ACC, even though in these losses they're showing, they're going to be, right there again throughout the season, especially with the 2 teams I mentioned. We can't forget the other teams that are ranked. And Virginia Tech's off to a good start. So is Georgia Tech. Over on the men's side, obviously we got a lot of questionable losses to start this season, to say the least. Wouldn't you say, Jim?
Yeah.
Even going back to opening night, Georgia Tech lost to Miami of Ohio, gave up 9 points in like the final 2 minutes for the Red Hawks to get the dub. Pitt just they weren't even in the game against the Citadel. I watched a decent amount of this game, and really the Citadel looked like the better team. That's kind of the sad part. They were down double digits for most of the game. Probably the biggest surprise of that night was Virginia losing at home to Navy, but I think the story of that game was Virginia's questions, I guess you could say, about the offense were kind of prevalent in this game. I thought really their first 2 games were statistical outliers. Like, they're not going to shoot 4-16 from 3 every game, but they're also not going to shoot 50% from 3 like they did in their win over Radford. So we're still trying to figure out their baseline. And obviously they have a huge game coming up this Tuesday against Houston down at Houston. So that's going to be a big game there. We've seen North Carolina get taken pretty much to the final buzzer against Brown. Brown was waiting for some of that game too, especially into the second half. It was kind of a back and forth game for a while. North Carolina, they could show they can shoot. They had a pretty good shooting game on opening night. But yeah, like I say, I was surprised they were that Brown gave them a game. Even yesterday, kind of went under the radar because of all the football. Campbell gave Duke a pretty good game for a while, and I know Campbell was within a couple and throughout the second half, but Duke finally pulled away at the end. But Blue Devils looked pretty good, especially in that opening night win against Kentucky. Obviously, Paolo Banchero has been as advertised. Trevor Keels had a monster opening game as well. What else has stood out? Boston College just suddenly looked like world beaters in these first two games. Who would have predicted that? They've blown both of their opponents out. Still lots to this, decipher as we get into the season. But yeah, I would say all in all, I haven't been super impressed with the way the ACC has come out of the gates as a whole.
One thing I want to remind everybody, ourselves included, is that when basketball starts, basketball doesn't always start out really, really strong. And if you have teams that have some questions surrounding them, what you'll see probably for the first month is that team working out the kinks and finding the combinations. And you never know. A lot of people think that you can find that in practice. You can't until you actually have competition. Then you start to see it. Then you start to see who works best with whom, and you go from there. So some of the surprise losses to me, disappointing, but I wasn't overly surprised.
We've completely forgot about Louisville losing in overtime to Furman as well.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one as well. But yeah,
forget that.
I was watching the game the other night, and well, how did I forget about that? But yeah, that was another head scratching loss.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. I also want to throw out, I'm not that familiar with Brown from the standpoint of, regular play. Campbell and Furman, I am.
Mm-hmm. The Paladins.
They can be actually pretty tough. These are two teams that when it comes down to basketball, all of a sudden, you tend to, I guess it's moving over from being that football mentality into the basketball mentality. You tend to forget that just because this may be a lesser school or a lesser team, doesn't mean that, the old saying on any given Sunday, right? Well, that applies to every day of the week. And that applies especially to basketball. The Camels are notorious for giving people hard time in games, and they can sneak right up on you. Furman, same way. Furman can do that to you. If you're not paying attention, they're going to take it to you. And they're going to, they open that door and boom, there they are. They're like fish and family after 3 days. Don't let them in the house.
Yeah, right. Hey, let me go back to a point you made earlier, which I want to I'm 100% in agreement with you. We were talking about, and this is really true this year because there are so many new pieces with these teams that it's going to be hard. It's going to take a little while for coaches to figure things out and trying all these different lineup combinations, seeing what works, what doesn't work together. I think that's going to be especially true here early in the season.
Yeah, the one thing we talk about this year after year after year, and I think that fans, because it's constant churning. It's like with life in general. You get every year you add several people to your fan base, several thousand sometimes, and it churns. And of course, with death, you lose people too, right? So that's the churn, and we tend to forget sometimes that. Teams in any conference, really, what really makes a difference? What really is important? Well, most people will tell you that, these games, they don't mean diddly squid until you hit January and start playing conference. And then some people will say, well, even that doesn't make any difference because when you have a tournament, that makes a difference. Well, that's not completely true because if you don't have a decent conference schedule going on, you're not going to get an invitation to the NCAAs. And then, of course, people will say, well, if you get an invitation to the NCAA, that's the only thing that matters. Well, everybody's got their arguments. For me, I'd say November for me is almost a toss away month. December is a little different. start getting into some really intense competition. Now that's not totally true because as we saw with Duke winning their opener against Kentucky, I like those sort of games to happen like right now. Not all of them. I don't want to see the entire conference do that. I just want to see like one or two teams do it and rotate it off. It doesn't have to be Duke every year, even though I love Duke doing that.
Yeah.
I would like to see some of these other teams step up.
Like a couple of years ago when the ACC network first formed and everyone opened their season with a conference game. And I was like, hope they don't continue that going forward. And fortunately they did it. But let me ask you one more question before we move on, Jim.
Yeah.
Are you ready to stick a fork in Jeff Capel yet?
No. But I'm sure some fans in Pittsburgh are probably willing to go with something a little bigger than what you offered.
It was what I had handy. So.
Oh man. Yeah. No, not yet. For me, Capel gets another year. So that's me. I'm same way with Jeff Collins down at Georgia Tech. I mean, there's a lot of disappointment there, but I give him another year. Let's see what he does next year.
I don't think they're going to get rid of him after this year, but once we look into 2022, he's going to be on the hot seat.
He needs to deliver next year. Justin Fuente, well,
we'll see, but probably.
Yeah. I mean, there's a guy. Yeah.
Same with Cutcliffe.
I'm sorry. And I've been saying that for quite a while that and for me, it's just, I see a need to take the next step. That's all. I really like David Cutcliffe as a coach. I really do.
Yep. I do too.
I have nothing against him from that professional standpoint, but sometimes when you have coaches in certain positions and, they like what he has done, he has brought that program up to a certain level. It's like with house construction. Okay. The guys who are laying all the concrete block and bricks and everything are not the guys that you want to retain to put up your 2x4s and your drywall. And those are the same guys too that you don't want to put your electrical in and on and on and on. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's my mindset. I like David Cutcliffe. In fact, I like all the coaches in the conference. I think they're good coaches. Sometimes they're just not right fits or their time is done.
So you don't want an Amish person working on your electrical?
Actually, just knowing a few Amish and Mennonite, which are Amish light. Yeah.
Amish light. I like it. Well, I mean, it is true, but
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't want the plumber flying the airplane I'm on. Okay.
Yeah, I get you.
Unless the guy's, a retired pilot. So basketball, it started out interesting. I mean, it's November. Come on. We'll see some good stuff. That NC State South Carolina women's basketball game, that was an awesome game.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, and usually usually the first game of the season I watch is later in the day, but when I saw that on TV, I'm like, all right, I got to watch this because I know, 2 top 5 teams. That was a great game.
Yeah, it sure was. Enjoyed that. I like women. I'm just going to be blunt here for a second. I actually like to watch women's basketball more than I do men.
And I think I'm going to probably take a more vested interest in it this year because the Final Four is right here in my backyard.
That's right. So better get those tickets, man, because you're going to have somebody from the ACC out there this year. Couple teams for sure. All right. Finally, a week where we don't have everybody and their brother trying to get in on the top 25 Oopsies action. Because, everybody likes a little Oopsies action now and then, but we've had enough. All right. It's limited this week. Thank goodness. Mississippi State over number 17 Auburn. Final there 43-34. the SEC has been about as topsy-turvy as the ACC. And funny how nobody's talking about that. America's best football conference has been topsy-turvy. Haven't seen that headline yet, but you just heard it here.
Yeah. Well, it just feels like I guess to summarize the SEC in one word, it'd be cannibalistic. They're just eating themselves.
Ooh, sounds like a Joe Rogan thing.
Wait, hold on. Let me get flexible here.
Oh man.
But I know the point I'm making is
bleach.
No, the point I'm making is they're beating each other, they're eating each other, beating each other up, and
beating each other.
They're eating and beating each other up.
Oh, gotta
and this podcast has completely fallen off the rails.
Gotta hand it to them though, right? So.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, seriously though, this is what Mississippi State could do when they get their pass game going. They can hang with pretty much anybody in the country, maybe say for Georgia and Alabama, but their quarterback Will Rogers had a big game in this game. I think he threw for over 400 yards. He just big game, and Mississippi State's bowl eligible as well, beating top 20 Auburn team, who is the epitome of a roller coaster team.
Oh yeah. I think we even talked about this, that they've got the Pixies this year. Mm-hmm. So anyway, number 13 Baylor with a huge win over number 8 Oklahoma. Talking about a team that's been like all over the place this season. Oklahoma, what is happening there? And man, you look at the fan comments, it's crazy stuff. 13 Baylor, 27, number 8 Oklahoma, 14.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler.
Yes. I can't lay down, but because I'm sitting in a chair, but this would be the Undertaker gif.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, Caleb Williams was struggled in this game, and he was benched for Rattler, as Jim mentioned. But they were, they couldn't really stop Baylor's defense, and obviously Dave Aranda's their head coach. He has a big defensive background, and he had a great game plan for them, and Caleb made Caleb Williams struggle in this game. And Baylor, like you said that they're number 13 in the player rankings. They could slide up, at least to a spot or two after this performance.
Could be 10.
Could be 10. Yeah. And we've seen Oklahoma, throughout the season, they've been in position to get bit, but they've been able to escape those clutches, but not so much yesterday.
Yeah, unlike there's so many Joe Rogan jokes I want to throw out there. I'm gonna stop all in my head. No puns intended.
I was gonna say
number 15 Ole Miss over number 11 Texas A&M. Oh my gosh! Again, the cannibalistic nature of this conference. 29-19 final score. Just when you think Jimbo's got something going on.
Yep, just went out. He got flat out coached by Lane Kiffin in that game. I mean, we know Lane Kiffin's an offensive coach, and he put up over 500 yards on that Texas A&M defense. They only scored 29 points, but they were good in this game. And we know that on a given week, Ole Miss can hang with everyone but say 3 to 5 teams. That's feels like a lot of the SEC, to be honest with you, but
pretty much.
But Ole Miss can play. I mean, they can score with pretty much anybody. Another big win. They're 8-2 on the year, and just like Baylor, they're going to be climbing in the rankings a little bit.
Yep. That's a probably taking over Baylor's spot or 12, one or the other. Mm-hmm. Say. That's all coming out later, so we'll find out. Let's get into ACC football. We had a Thursday night game. We're going to have another this week. Pitt over UNC. This game intrigued me. I just wasn't really sure where this thing was going to finally peel out. It kept me through the game, and I kept waiting for something to tell me, like a gut feel that one of these teams was going to win. I never had it. I never had it with either one of them, which to me tells me that this was an excellent matchup and that they were both battling. And I think they delivered 30-23 Pitt with a big win over, well, an important win, not big, important win over North Carolina.
An important win because it keeps them in first place in the Coastal Division by one game over Virginia. Really, the story of this game was in the beginning. Pitt got out 17-0 in this game, and they just overwhelmed the Tar Heels, but eventually they just chipped away, and next thing you know, they tied it, in the fourth quarter. But once overtime came, leave it to Kenny Pickett to do the work, and he had a big game, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. Sam Howell, had a decent game through the air, didn't run it very well, but and say they've, Pitt, proven they can hang with just about everybody, at least in the ACC. But they have a huge game coming up against Virginia, and we'll get into the Virginia side of that in a little bit. But huge win for Pitt, and it does eliminate UNC from the Coastal Division race, which I think a lot of people are going to look at this as a disappointing season, and I would understand it and probably agree with it. But this is where, at the same time, we probably should have tempered our expectations to begin with.
Agreed. We get into Saturday action now. Louisville rolling to a 41-3 win over Syracuse. I think that I had shared that I got torched on all my picks this week, pretty close. This is one of those games I expected to be a heck of a lot closer, and I thought maybe in some ways it could have been an upset for Syracuse, but a 41-3 shellacking at the hands of Louisville. Is Louisville coming together at the right time of the season?
It feels like it, doesn't it? Especially after that performance. And, I would not have, going before that game, I certainly would not have faulted you for wanting to take Syracuse in that game, because, look at the matchup, Louisville's not exactly a great defense, and you figure Syracuse could run the football all over them, but, really only 3.5 yards a carry. That's not really going to do it. And only 184 total yards. That's not going to do it. But like I say, the story of the game was Louisville. Just excellent effort all around, offensively, defensively. They got out right away. They scored 14 points in the first quarter. They were up 35-3 at halftime, and they basically just messed around in the second half and got a couple of field goals. But Louisville still, definitely, both these teams still looking at a possible bowl bid. I think Louisville is now up to 5 wins, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And I think next week will probably be their best shot to win. I know they closed the season with Kentucky, and I'm not sure they can. I guess it depends on which version of Kentucky shows up,
or which version of Louisville shows up.
Well, if this version of Louisville shows up, they're winning. There's no doubt about that.
I think that they have an opportunity to knock off Kentucky this season. Kentucky has been on this downward slide as of late, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what's going on there, but man, they had this upward trajectory that was amazing. And then all of a sudden it was like somebody threw the light switch or turned the power off or whatever. And it was like, boom, they have been tumbling. So
yeah, crazy, isn't it?
This is a game that, let me just say, I hate, this is an SEC thing to do. I hate when you take these type of games and you put them at the end of your season. Clemson 44, UConn 7. I have all the sympathy in the world for UConn, and I have a feeling they're probably going to turn things around, but it's going to take a couple years to do it. If they're committed, they can make it happen. But for Clemson to schedule UConn at this time of the season, why?
Well, let me go backwards for a second.
Sure.
Louisville plays Duke next week, so yeah, we could pretty much lock up bowl eligibility for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this game, yeah, I don't know. And the weird thing is, it's not like, Clemson is playing SEC, the big rivalry game next week, like SEC schools. They play Wake Forest. I mean, it's a huge game. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
So, but usually that's next week's when they play the Patsies. But the funny thing is, this is like the most uninspiring 44-7 score I've ever seen. Because I mean, the offense wasn't great. I mean,
No.
DJ Uyunglele completed less than 50% of his passes. They ran for 3 yards to carry. Um, yeah, it was UConn took the opening kickback for a touchdown, but had 99 total yards for the game. I mean, it was all about the defense, obviously, because we know Clemson's defense is good, but that was it wasn't even a neck crack game because it was just a game. you knew Clemson was going to win, but it was just a matter of by how much.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I hate talking about games like that. It's not a game. It's really not. It's on your schedule. You got to win. So what? And it was uninspiring.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about an inspiring game. This next game, in-state rivalry, and has been going on for years and years and years. This is like serious stuff. And the trash talk before, during, and even after this game is staggering. But it's what you expect out of Florida State and Miami, What a crazy game. And our buddy Chris Bond, he said he was bailing on this game because he was just, Mr. Optimist, Mr. Debbie Downer, thought that it was all over for the Noles. Florida State pulls out a 31-28 win over Miami. And there's the immediate call for the head of Manny Diaz by Miami fans. Go Fish.
Well, that's every loss. Let's be real.
It's every week, whether they win or lose.
Yeah. Well, we went from an uninspiring game to a very inspiring game, as you mentioned, Jim. I mean, this was a great game just because it was, because it had a great ending, pretty much. But remember back at the beginning when we talked about the UNC Pitt game and how the beginning of the game kind of told the story, and really the beginning of this game told the story too, because Florida State got out in front 14-0 because they forced turnovers. Forced some picks by Tyler Van Dyke. They recovered a fumble. Really, it was kind of one-sided for a little bit, but then Miami kind of woke up in the second half and actually had the lead go at 28-23 late in the game. But then Florida State converted a 4th and 14, got down to the Miami 1 where they scored a few plays later and eventually held on for the win. But that was a huge performance by Jordan Travis, and we know him as a runner, but his passing in this game, I mean, 274 yards passing in this game, including that huge throw. That was probably the best passing game of his career in a game he absolutely needed it. We've talked about, Florida State's, struggles this season, got out of the gate slow, 0-4, then won 3 in a row, then lost 2 more, and got the big win yesterday. They're 4-6 on the year, still outside shot of a bowl, but they have to play BC and Florida. BC is starting to play. I mean, hard to judge off of yesterday because but BC's a good team, and Florida, well, they celebrated a game in which they allowed 52 points to an FCS school. So that tells you where that program's at right now. But again, big win for the Noles. Miami. This is Tyler Van Dyke played a little bit like a freshman in this game. Made some great throws, but he also made some questionable throws, and those are the kind of things you got to deal with as a freshman, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I think he's a great quarterback in the making.
Yeah. And we've said that about, feels like every Miami quarterback for the past 15 years, but
yes, it does.
but I actually do think there's something there with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. There's now I talked about my gut earlier with him, you know, first of all, the when he started out with the mouthiness of we're going to do this, we're going to do that, I'm going like, okay. The old saying of don't let your mouth write a check that your butt can't cash. So I'm thinking, okay, dude, don't do that, or it could come back to bite you. Well, he delivered, and he has delivered, and I think that the adrenaline rush that he had on the first couple of games is now sort of coming into this awareness of okay, the game is speeding up, because I'm tell you what, Florida State was coming. They were coming all game after him, and they rattled him. Now that's the game you're going to have to get used to. And if you're going to move into the NFL, it's going to be times 10.
Mm-hmm.
So slow up that mental clock and you'll be fine. I'm still not on board with anybody calling for Diaz to be fired. I think that if you look at it's a slow progression, and I know that drives people crazy, but it's like you've got to give people time to build programs. It just doesn't happen overnight like it used to. Your daddy's college football no longer exists.
It's possible that the emergence of Van Dyke probably bought Diaz another year.
I hope so. I want to see Diaz do well. I think he's got the makings there of making, truly bringing the U around the corner. Now, I'm not prepared to say they're back next year or the year after, but I definitely think that they're moving in the right direction. And Miami fans can complain about that all they want, and they can call me an idiot all they want. Probably do. That's okay. Feel free. I'll return the favor. You're an idiot for not giving the man an opportunity to build the team. Let him build it. He's had he was down. That team was in a deep, dark hole, and it needed to be lifted up out of that, and it has to be rebuilt. It takes time. It doesn't happen immediately. Now, it can, but you have to have patience, and you have to allow somebody the time to do it. That's what I think needs to happen there. Good game. I love that. Of course, that kept us all right there watching until the last moment. Every game that you watch, to be quite frank, don't depart until the clock is reading all zeros, because you never know what's going to happen ever, and that's especially true in basketball. Don't go to your car before the game's over.
This is kind of off topic, and I was just thinking about it. There was another Oopsie. It wasn't a ranked team so much as it was just, the big bad wolf getting taken down by the Three Little Pigs. Kansas beating Texas.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
That was some game. I mean, I ended up watching the end of that game after the Virginia game. Yes. We both just got 15-yard penalties for that, but who cares?
And I won't do that.
2 fingers. Which ones doesn't belong?
There you go. Oh, Mr. Ref.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was a good game too. That ending was just crazy. All right, let's move on to our next ACC game. This was insane. How this is a reason why you don't leave games just because your team is losing or whatever. You don't leave. Boston College 41, Georgia Tech 30. Now, how many points did Boston College put up on the board in the second half?
13.
Mm-hmm.
It was 13-9. They outscored them in the second, but it was, all 13 points came in the fourth quarter. But I'm gonna say it was back and forth the whole way.
Right.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, that's what you're saying. It was close until like the final like couple of minutes of the game. Even though Boston College had over 160 yards of offense more than Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech sacked Dracovic 3 times in this game and kept them, somewhat in a, kept that helped keep the game close. The running game obviously did too, because between Jameer Gibbs and Jordan, they actually started Jordan Yates in this game. I think Sims is injured again. I was kind of out of the loop yesterday, so I didn't get caught up everything, but they ran for 213 yards as a team, averaging 5 yards per carry. Yates, he's not as good of a passer as Sims is. He just threw for 126 yards, but Boston College, this looked more like the Phil Dracovic we know. Threw for 310 and 2 touchdowns, ran for 3. So 5 total touchdowns for Dracovic on the ground. Pat Garwo had over 100 yards rushing. You're finally starting to see an emergence of a running game for the Eagles, and just in time, really, because they're starting to show a lot. I mean, like I said, they play Florida State next week. That's going to be a big game. Should be a fun game, as much as the records may not dictate it. But we've seen the emergence of Florida State at 4-6. Boston College, I believe they're bowl eligible now. So big, that's going to be a big game. And we say Dracovic has, starting to play like what we thought they would be, and Boston College is rounding into that form of the team we thought they'd be in the preseason before he got hurt. But as you mentioned for Georgia Tech, I mean, just another L for Jeff Collins, and it's like you say, he's probably going to go into 2022 in the hot seat, because it feels like they're just not improving at this point.
Yeah, I would say that being on a warm seat is, I think that's fair going into 2022. There's expectations.
If I'm Jeff Collins, I at least looked into making a change at probably defensive coordinator, because I think the offense is fine.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, right? We've got a couple months to go before those changes.
Yeah.
So
a month or so from today.
Yeah. Maybe
I'm looking at the right around the day of Justin Fuentes' buyout from today. It's like a month from tomorrow.
Merry Christmas.
Yep. Merry Christmas. You're fired.
Thanks there, Scrooge.
Yeah.
All right. Virginia Tech. 48-17. Doesn't tell me a lot, other than the Hokies won a game.
Yeah.
Duke lost a game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying there's really not a whole lot into this game. I mean, Duke did not have Gunnar Holmberg in this game. He was out with an injury, so they went with 2 different quarterbacks. Neither of them were great. But they ran the ball well, because that's the strength of their team. And it wasn't even really Mateo Durant. He only averaged 3 yards per carry in this game. It was Jordan Moore, the freshman, had 113 yards on the ground and a touchdown. But it was all about Virginia Tech's rushing attack. They ran for 297 yards, averaging over 7 yards per carry. Raheem Blackshear had 100 yards rushing. It was a pretty lopsided affair, and like I say, it's not looking very good for Duke. Virginia Tech still on the cusp of a bowl. They have two games left. Both they're going to be tough games for sure. And obviously they closed the season with Virginia, but in between then, the Hokies have another tough contest. And if I could pull it up right, it's at Miami. So they might be an underdog in that game. So, sitting at 5-5, they need one more win for bowl eligibility. And, we don't say at Miami is going to be tough, and Virginia, well, we'll wait and see on that one.
All right.
Which I didn't think I would be saying, even last week.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to this next game. Notre Dame over UVA 28-3. There's so many woulda, shoulda, couldas scenarios here, and we can talk about, well, we would have done better if we'd had Brendan Armstrong, blah 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 blah. Okay, well, you You didn't, and it. But one thing I did take away from this game, especially in the second half, saw adjustments made, and I thought the defense is looking a lot better for UVA. Notre Dame still does not impress me as being a team that ought to be in the top 10. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, they're good. I think they ought to be maybe top 15, but 10 they're number 9.
And probably will move up a spot.
I'd probably. They'd probably be 8 or maybe 7. They've won games. I mean, that's all that matters, really.
Yep.
You win games, you come through, you deliver. Mm-hmm. That's what people look at in the result.
And their only blemish is to a team ranked ahead of them.
Exactly. I'm still not sold.
Yeah, I know. I hear. No, I'm just saying. But we were talking about their resume. Yeah, it doesn't look as strong as it did. When the season started, but they're winning. That's all you can do.
That's right.
You can't control how the teams on your schedule being suddenly being bad or mediocre. And obviously, Brennan Armstrong out for this game with a rib injury. I'm not fully convinced he's going to be able to play next week against Pitt. I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach with that. As far as getting the star Jay Woolfolk in his first game, I think it was the first true freshman at Virginia to start since basically when Star Wars Episode 4 came out in 1977.
Oh,
yeah. So I hadn't even been born yet. That's how long ago it was. But I thought he played like somebody making his first career start. He made some really nice throws, but he also made the kind of throws someone making their first start will make.
That's right.
What I call, and what you and I would like to call, teachable moments.
And he learned. I think. Yep. I think I could see a progression.
Yeah. He did play a little bit better in the second half, but I also don't think the play calling helped him necessarily at times.
I think he was put in situations that he shouldn't have been.
And I just looked at the very first play of the game on offense was a direct snap to Keaton Thompson, where I love Keaton Thompson, but that's not what I would have called on the first play of the game. I would have done like basically their second down play, which was like a quick pass to Billy Kemp. That's what I would have gone on first down. And then maybe try to set up something from there. But I think speaking of Thompson, he did have a nice receiving game. He was pretty much he had half of Woolfolk's completions. He had 9 catches and 110 yards in this game. So obviously they have a rapport. You talked about Notre Dame. Let me go to them for a second. I really thought they kind of went to a vanilla game plan in the second half because Virginia really showed no proof that they could really score. So they didn't really need to do much, but I do think Virginia defense was a little bit better. I thought the scheme was better, but what's plagued them all season? Tackling. And I even tweeted this out during the game last night where if I had took a drink for every time there was a missed tackle, I'd be pretty damn wasted, but luckily I didn't drink during the game. So
or you wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, the motion, and this is the video format, but the motion you made, yeah, that was definitely what it felt like, and even something me and our recent guest Jackie Franchuli were talking about during the game last night too. Wrap up.
Yeah, I have to go back to Little League football, ankle biters or whatever you want to call them. They don't teach kids how to tackle anymore. It's, you get kids out there and it's all about grabbing. Well, I'm sorry, when you have somebody who's 200 plus pounds and 6'2" coming at you full speed, he's going to rip your arms out of the sockets, man. You can't arm tackle people. Come on. What are you, nuts? And you see all these these plays over tons of games where people's jerseys are being ripped apart because that's how strong that running back is.
Uh-huh.
Somebody gets a hold of the jersey and that back just keeps going. And
Yep.
the next thing you see is this stretch out and then it rips. And I'm going like, dude,
I
that's
think
teach you right there.
and I actually saw that during on one of Billy Kemp's receptions
Yep.
last night. I think it was the second down play I was telling you about.
Going.
I think he caught a pass and like the Notre Dame guy just held onto his jersey and it looked like he was going to rip it off.
He got 5 yards.
Yep.
I mean, it kept he just like kept stretching the jersey out or
Yep.
whatever it was he
Yep.
got a hold of. And he got 5 yards after that. He was pulling the guy. It was like dog sledding, man. I mean, come on. Crazy. Yeah. Learn how to tackle, basics. It's the basics. And coaches who are out there who have the youngins, teach them how to tackle. Teach them how to tackle. Don't be afraid. Get your shoulder down, not your head. Get your shoulder. Get your shoulder into it. And then wrap your arms around. Grab a hold and don't let go. You want to be able to put them down on the ground. Simple as that. We haven't taught that for a long time, and I've seen that. You see it in the pros. You see, and it's a result of this. Just what I'm speaking of, they haven't been teaching that properly, and you see pros trying to arm tackle people. Really? All right. And our final game of the night. This was another barn burner. And let me tell you something. These two teams being ranked where they are nationally, they deserve to be there because both of these teams are awesome and have two of the best quarterbacks that you could ask for. I mean, this league is just chock full of some of the best quarterbacks in college football.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it, man.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but that's a great point because going into the season, Sam Howell was a good quarterback. We expected DJ Uiagalelei to be good, but he hasn't been good. But then you've seen all these other quarterbacks step up. Kenny Pickett, Brendan Armstrong, the two quarterbacks in this game, Sam Hartman and Devin Leary. Seeing the emergence of Tyler Van Dyke. It's amazing how much the crop of quarterbacks has grown this season in the league.
They're awesome. They're just awesome, man. Wake Forest 45-42 over NC State. Mm-hmm. Great game. And I loved every moment that I could catch of this game. I especially like the end when on the huddle on the ACC network where they interviewed Sam, and what a nice guy. What a nice guy. If that guy doesn't get picked, doesn't get picked reasonably in the NFL draft, it's going to be mind-boggling. He is a playmaker. And again, as Will mentioned earlier, if you watch the video version of this, you can be introduced to his faithful companion, Martin, who is now sitting on his lap.
Yep. But Devin Leary, you talked about the great quarterbacks. Devin Leary had over 400 yards in this game and kind of a losing effort. 408 yards, 4 touchdowns. And it's amazing how like all of a sudden NC State, we went into the season thinking, they'd be, the best rushing team in the league. And they actually had the lowest yards per game in the league. And they only ran for 74 yards in this game, which is really surprising with the two running backs they had. But special teams really carried them in this game. They had the kick return touchdown to open the second half by Bam Knight, and then he had another one that was in the second quarter that set up a touchdown as he took it deep in the Wake territory. Emeka Emezie in this game, 10 catches, 133 yards in this game, a big game for him. Hartman had 290, but he was 20 of 47 passing. And threw 3 picks. So he's hit a little bit of a rough stretch because he had a little bit of a rough game against North Carolina. Struggled, obviously in this game in terms of completions, but they really didn't have a great rushing attack. They only averaged 2.6 yards per carry, on that. But NC State had 14 penalties in this game, and that can be a big problem when you have that many penalties and whatnot. But yeah, big win for Wake after the loss last week. They definitely needed a rebound game, and they definitely got it here.
Thanks for joining us on ACC Nation. Follow us by subscribing on your favorite podcast or streaming radio platform and on YouTube. We'd appreciate a 5-star rating while you're there. Visit our homepage at accnation.net and support us via PayPal. Keep up with the latest by following us on Google News. You can find ACC Nation on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, and Pinterest. Follow Will at Will's World MN, and I'm at ACC The Q. Cheers!
Score.